Have you ever noticed how the moment something good comes your way, you find a reason to push it away? Not because you don't deserve it, not because it's wrong for you, but because somewhere deep inside, accepting it feels dangerous. Like stepping into a room where the walls might collapse. You reject the promotion before the interview even happens. You sabotage the relationship before it gets too real. You dismiss the opportunity before you've even considered it. And here's what nobody tells you. This isn't weakness. This is your nervous system trying to protect you from something it learned was threatening a long time ago. Today, we're going into the hidden psychology behind why you reject everything you want, and more importantly, how to finally stop doing it. Let's start with something that might sound backwards. When you reject what you want, you're not being self-destructive, you're being self-protective. Your brain doesn't distinguish between physical danger and emotional vulnerability. To your nervous system, success, love, recognition, they all carry the same red flag as standing at the edge of a cliff. Because at some point in your past, wanting something and losing it, or getting it and losing yourself, taught your body that desire equals danger. Maybe you watched someone close to you achieve something and then fall apart. Maybe you got what you wanted once, and the responsibility crushed you. Maybe every time you expressed a need as a child, you were met with disappointment or neglect. So your nervous system did what it does best. It created a pattern, a survival mechanism. Reject first, hurt less later. It's not a flaw in your character, it's an adaptation that once kept you safe. The problem is it's still running the show long after the original threat is gone. Architected conversational script, maintaining emotional validation and narrative progression. Here's where it gets deeper. Rejection isn't just about fear, it's about identity. Who are you if you get what you want? Most people never ask themselves this question, but it's the question that controls everything. Because the version of you that struggles, that wants, that yearns, that's familiar, that's safe. That's who you know how to be. But the version of you that has it, that's achieved it, that's living it, that person is a stranger. And your brain hates strangers. It hates uncertainty. So it convinces you that staying in the wanting is somehow more honest, more humble, more you than actually having. But let me tell you what's really happening. You're confusing your identity with your circumstances. You think that if you stop struggling, you'll stop being you. But struggling was never who you are. It was only ever what you were doing. And the moment you realize that having what you want doesn't erase you, it just reveals more of you, everything changes. Think about the last time you had a genuine opportunity in front of you. A job that excited you. A person who saw you. A chance to create something meaningful. What was your first thought? If you're like most people, it wasn't excitement. It was doubt, not qualified enough, not ready, not deserving. And here's the trick your mind plays on you. It disguises rejection as realism. It tells you you're just being practical. But realism and self-protection aren't the same thing. Realism is assessing risk and moving forward anyway. Self-protection is inventing risk to avoid moving at all. And the most insidious part, you believe your own story. You convince yourself that you're just being smart, cautious, grounded, when really you're just being scared. Scared that if you reach for what you want and it doesn't work out, you'll have proof that you were right, to doubt yourself all along. So you reject it first. You control the narrative. You get to say, I didn't want it anyway. But deep down you know the truth. You wanted it desperately, and that's exactly why you pushed it away. Let's talk about what happens in your body when opportunity shows up. Your heart rate increases, your palms sweat, your stomach tightens. You feel a surge of energy that's supposed to propel you forward. But instead of interpreting this as excitement, your nervous system flags it as danger. Because excitement and anxiety live in the same physiological neighborhood. Your body can't tell the difference between I'm about to do something amazing and I'm about to be attacked, so it defaults to the safest interpretation, threat. And once your body decides something is a threat, your mind scrambles to justify that feeling. It generates reasons, logical-sounding explanations for why this opportunity isn't right, why this person isn't the one, why this moment isn't the time, and you believe those reasons because they feel true, but they're not true. They're just your fear wearing the mask of logic. And the more you listen to them, the more you strengthen the neural pathway that says wanting is dangerous, until eventually you stop wanting altogether. Not because you've transcended desire, but because you've taught yourself that desire only leads to pain. Now here's the part that might make you uncomfortable. You reject what you want because you're addicted to the fantasy. The dream is safe. The dream doesn't demand anything from you. It doesn't require you to show up, to be vulnerable, to possibly fail. As long as you keep what you want at a distance, it stays perfect, untouchable. But the moment you reach for it, it becomes real. And real things are messy. They challenge you. They expose you. They ask you to grow. And growth, even when it's positive, feels like loss, because you have to let go of the version of yourself that didn't have it. You have to step into a new identity, and that's terrifying. So you stay in the wanting. You romanticize the struggle. You tell yourself that one day, when the conditions are perfect, when you're more ready, more worthy, more healed, then you'll go for it. But that day never comes, because the conditions are never perfect. You're never fully ready. And worthiness isn't something you earn, it's something you claim, and claiming it means giving up the comfort of waiting. It means accepting that the only thing standing between you and what you want is your willingness to stop rejecting it. Let's get specific about the patterns. Some people reject through procrastination. They want to write the book, start the business, make the move. But there's always something else that needs to happen first. Some people reject through self-sabotage. They get close to success and then do something to blow it up, miss the deadline, pick a fight, burn the bridge. Some people reject through deflection. They convince themselves they want something else entirely, something safer, smaller, less threatening. And some people reject through perfectionism. They set the bar so impossibly high that failure is guaranteed. Because if you never meet your own standards, you never have to face the vulnerability of actually having what you want and discovering it wasn't the answer to everything after all. But here's what all these patterns have in common. They're not about the external thing, they're about you, about your relationship with yourself, about whether you believe you're allowed to take up space, to be seen, to succeed, to be happy. And until you address that core belief, no strategy, no opportunity, no perfect circumstance will ever be enough, because you'll find a way to reject it, not consciously, but automatically, because rejection has become your default response to desire. So how do you break this? First, you have to catch yourself in the act. The next time you feel yourself pulling away from something you want, pause. Don't judge it. Just notice it. Notice the sensations in your body. Notice the thoughts in your mind. Notice the story you're telling yourself about why this isn't right. And then ask yourself one simple question. Is this true or is this protection? Most of the time, it's protection. And once you see it for what it is, it loses some of its power. Second, you have to practice discomfort. Not the discomfort of deprivation, but the discomfort of expansion. Start saying yes to small things that scare you. Not because they're objectively scary, but because they challenge your identity. Take the compliment instead of deflecting it. Accept the invitation instead of making an excuse. Apply for the thing even though you don't feel ready. Each time you do this, you're rewiring your nervous system. You're teaching it that desire doesn't equal danger, that having what you want won't destroy you. And slowly over time, rejection stops being your reflex, and acceptance starts becoming your new normal. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. You can't wait until you feel ready. You can't wait until you feel worthy. You can't wait until the fear goes away, because readiness is a myth. Worthiness is a birthright, not an achievement. And fear doesn't disappear. It just becomes less convincing. The only way forward is to act in spite of the discomfort, to reach for what you want, even when every cell in your body is screaming at you to pull back, not because you're brave, but because you're finally more committed to your growth than you are to your comfort. And that commitment doesn't come from a place of force. It comes from a place of compassion, from recognizing that the part of you that rejects what you want isn't your enemy. It's a younger version of you that learned that wanting led to pain, and it's been trying to protect you ever since. But you're not that version anymore. You're stronger now, more resourced, more capable. And it's time to let that younger part of you know that it's safe to want, that it's safe to have, that it's safe to be seen in your fullness without apology or retreat. Let me tell you what changes when you stop rejecting what you want. Your relationships deepen because you're no longer pushing people away the moment they get close. Your career accelerates because you're no longer sabotaging opportunities out of fear. Your creativity expands because you're no longer hiding behind the excuse of not being ready. But more than any of that, you start to feel like yourself. Not the self you've been pretending to be, not the self you think you should be, but the self you actually are when you're not performing, not protecting, not pretending. And that self is powerful. That self is worthy. That self deserves everything it wants. Not because it's perfect, but because it's here, because it's alive, because it's willing to risk the vulnerability of wanting in a world that will inevitably disappoint sometimes. But here's the thing about disappointment. It's temporary. Regret is permanent. And the regret of never trying, of never reaching, of never allowing yourself to have what you want, that's the kind of regret that haunts you. Not because you failed, but because you never gave yourself the chance to succeed. So here's your call to action. Think about one thing you've been rejecting, one opportunity, one relationship, one dream, one version of yourself, and ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped pushing this away? Not what could go wrong, but what could go right. What would it feel like to finally let yourself have this, to stop living in the gap between wanting and having and just close that gap? It won't be comfortable. Your nervous system will resist. Your mind will generate 1,000 reasons why now isn't the time. But you don't need permission. You don't need to be more ready. You just need to choose. Choose to stop rejecting, choose to start receiving, choose to believe that you're allowed to want what you want and have what you want without apology. Because you are. You always have been. The only thing that's ever stood in your way is the belief that wanting is dangerous. But it's not. Wanting is human. Having is your birthright. And the moment you stop rejecting it, everything shifts. Not because the world changes, but because you do. And that's the only change that ever really mattered. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's safe to stop pushing away what they want. And drop a comment telling me what's one thing you've been rejecting that you're ready to finally let in. Let's talk about it.